Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we're moving beyond the industrial magnates of old, the Rockefellers and Carnegies who built empires of steel and oil. A new breed of titan has emerged, the digital architects of our world. Figures like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and Peter Thiel command technological empires that have fundamentally reshaped how we live. But their influence no longer stops at our screens. With immense wealth and the powerful tools they've created, these tech moguls are stepping directly into the political arena, shaping policy, molding public opinion, and, some argue, redefining governance itself. This raises a profound question. Are we witnessing the dawn of an era where power is held not by elected officials, but by a handful of unelected tech visionaries? Let's break down how these new leviathans are shaping our political future. The political influence of tech moguls isn't a simple story. It's a mix of staggering personal wealth, control over our main channels of communication, and a shared, powerful belief that technology can solve all of humanity's problems. Let's look at the key players. First, Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, and now the owner of X, formerly Twitter, is perhaps the most prominent and unpredictable political actor in tech. He's evolved from a bipartisan donor to a vocal supporter of right-wing causes and figures. His ownership of X gives him a global megaphone, which he uses to promote his political views, get into public disputes with world leaders, and even endorse far-right movements in countries like Germany and the UK. His financial muscle is also immense, with reports marking him as a major donor in the 2024 US presidential election. Next is Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon and owner of the Washington Post. His power is twofold: a colossal business empire and ownership of one of the world's most influential newspapers. While his political donations have historically gone to both parties, his ownership of the Post has drawn scrutiny. Concerns were amplified when he reportedly directed the paper's editorial board to stop making political endorsements, raising questions about using media ownership to push a personal agenda. Then there's Mark Zuckerberg. As the CEO of Meta, he presides over a social media empire with billions of users. This gives him unparalleled influence over the global flow of information. While he often projects an image of political neutrality, his company's policies on content moderation and political ads have had a massive impact on elections and political discourse worldwide. Even his philanthropy through the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative has been criticized. Some see it as a way to advance a specific policy agenda under the cover of charitable giving, blurring the lines between aid and activism. Finally, we have Peter Thiel, a co-founder of PayPal and Palantir, and an early investor in Facebook. Thiel is a vocal conservative libertarian in a largely liberal Silicon Valley. His influence comes from his substantial financial contributions to Republican candidates and his intellectual sway in certain tech and conservative circles. Thiel is a key figure in a movement known as the Dark Enlightenment, a philosophy that is highly critical of democracy and advocates for more authoritarian forms of governance. His financial backing of political figures who echo these views, like J.D. Vance, has raised serious concerns about the growing influence of anti-democratic ideas in mainstream politics. So how exactly do these moguls exert their influence? It's not just about writing checks, though that's a big part of it. The first tool is, of course, money, specifically through lobbying and campaign finance. Tech companies have become some of the biggest spenders in Washington, D.C. In 2021 alone, Apple, Amazon, Google, and Facebook spent over $55 million on federal lobbying in the U.S. These efforts aim to shape legislation on everything from antitrust and data privacy to artificial intelligence. Beyond corporate lobbying, tech billionaires and their employees are major campaign donors. In the 2024 U.S. presidential election cycle, the tech industry contributed over $394 million, much of it from a small group of billionaires. Perhaps their most potent tool, however, is their control over information and public discourse. By owning the social media networks, search engines, and news outlets we use every day, these individuals can shape what we see, how political stories are framed, and which voices get amplified. The algorithms that run these platforms are designed to maximize engagement, which can inadvertently create echo chambers and filter bubbles. This process worsens political polarization and accelerates the spread of misinformation, whether intentionally or not. A third tool is philanthropy and what's called thought leadership. Tech moguls use their vast fortunes to fund initiatives that often have a clear political or ideological slant. We mentioned the Mark Zuckerberg initiative being criticized for blurring the lines between charity and political activism. Another example is the Giving Pledge, a commitment by many of the world's wealthiest to give away most of their fortunes. While noble on the surface, it's been scrutinized for allowing a small, unelected group of billionaires to set the public agenda for social change, deciding which problems get solved and how. Underlying these actions are powerful ideologies born in Silicon Valley. These belief systems provide the intellectual framework for their political ambitions. The most mainstream ideology is techno-optimism. This is the core belief that technological progress is the main driver of human advancement and the solution to our biggest problems. Venture capitalist Mark Andreessen laid this out in his Techno-Optimist Manifesto. He argues that technology is the only source of sustainable growth and that anything slowing it down is morally wrong. He sees technology as an unequivocal force for good, capable of ending poverty, disease, and climate change. This faith is common among tech leaders and shapes their policy preferences. However, critics argue this is a dangerously simplistic view. It ignores the complex social and ethical problems that technology can create, such as deepening inequality, creating new forms of social control, and undermining democratic institutions. They argue the techno-optimist vision often prioritizes a market-driven definition of progress over broader concerns for social justice and human well-being. But there's a more radical philosophy lurking in the shadows of Silicon Valley, the Dark Enlightenment. This is an anti-democratic and anti-egalitarian movement that rejects core Enlightenment values like reason, individual liberty, and democratic governance. Instead, it favors more hierarchical, authoritarian systems. Proponents, like blogger Curtis Yarvin, argue that democracy is a failed experiment. They believe it should be replaced by a more rational form of governance, like a techno-feudal state run by a CEO-like dictator. This ideology has found a receptive audience among some tech elites frustrated with what they see as the messiness of democratic politics. Peter Thiel is the most prominent figure associated with the Dark Enlightenment. His support for candidates who share these anti-democratic views has fueled concerns about these ideas entering the mainstream. The rise of this movement is a stark reminder that the political goals of some tech moguls may be fundamentally at odds with democracy itself. This concentration of power has led to comparisons with the robber barons of the Gilded Age. Like those 19th century industrialists, today's tech titans have built powerful monopolies that have reshaped our economy and society. But there's a key difference. The Gilded Age robber barons operated in a world where business and government were more distinct. Today's tech moguls operate where technology and politics are deeply intertwined, and their influence is exercised through more subtle and pervasive means, like controlling the flow of information itself. And this isn't just an American phenomenon, it's global. In Europe, the EU has been trying to regulate big tech with laws like the GDPR and the Digital Services Act. But these efforts are met with fierce lobbying from tech companies. The fight has also become ideological. Elon Musk has been accused of using X to interfere in European politics by endorsing far-right parties, leading Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez to accuse tech billionaires of wanting to, quote, overthrow democracy. Latin America is another key battleground. The region's growing internet user base makes it an attractive market. Musk has again been a central figure, accused of using his influence to support right-wing politicians and promote his business interests. particularly in countries rich with lithium, a key component for his electric cars. Asia presents a more complex picture. In China, the government maintains strict control over its domestic tech giants. In other countries like India, the government is grappling with how to regulate social media platforms, accused of spreading misinformation and hate speech, while also relying on those same companies for economic growth. But this rise in power hasn't gone unchallenged. Resistance is growing from several quarters. One of the most significant sources of pushback is coming from within the tech companies themselves. A wave of employee activism has swept Silicon Valley, with workers organizing walkouts and speaking out against their employers' controversial projects and policies. This new activism is less about wages and more about broad ethical and political issues, creating an important new check on the power of tech moguls. Civil society organizations are also fighting back. Groups like People vs. Big Tech are building a global movement to challenge tech monopolies. They're calling for stronger antitrust enforcement, transparency in algorithms, and a ban on surveillance advertising, trying to create a more democratic and equitable internet. Finally, governments are slowly starting to act. The EU is leading the charge with regulation, and other countries are watching closely. The path is difficult, as tech companies have vast resources to fight back, and technology changes faster than lawmakers can legislate. But public pressure for accountability is mounting. So, what does this all mean for the future of governance? The rise of the tech mogul is blurring the lines between the public and private spheres. As tech companies take on functions once reserved for the state, from providing critical infrastructure to shaping public discourse, they are becoming de facto governing institutions. This privatization of governance is concerning because, unlike elected officials, tech moguls are not accountable to the public. Their decisions are driven by profit, not necessarily the public interest. Some scholars call this new era techno-capitalism, where power is concentrated in the hands of a few tech founders. This has led to fears of a future some call techno-feudalism, where a new class of tech lords rules over a digital peasantry. Ultimately, this poses a fundamental challenge to democracy. The challenge for us is to find a way to harness technology's innovative potential while holding the power of tech moguls in check. This will require stronger regulations, greater transparency, and a more engaged and informed citizenry. The future of governance is being written in the code of the platforms they command. The question for all of us is whether we will have a say in how that future unfolds. Thanks for tuning in to G Fun Facts Online.